In this example, to get a bit of practice with file access, we're going to create a simple address book. All right, so just a very simple database that will be written to and read from in the form of a CSV file. And one of the things we need to manipulate the data as we move from one function to another, because we haven't got too heavy into indirection or passing arguments from one function to another and return values yet. So we're just going to create a global array, and we'll call it group of friends. And if we read the data in from our address book file, or we input a bunch of new friends, this will help us deal with a group of records, all right? So the combination of all the columns in a single row that make up a friend. So that's what this array is, and this is just a dynamic empty array. So we can expand it and modify its size as needed, okay? And that's in our global namespace, so even when our functions end, that data will persist in memory, and it will be available to other functions. And we're going to write a class, and we're going to call it the friend class. And the friend class is just going to have data members that hold all the attributes we need to, all the information we need to store about a friend. So like first name, last name, email address, mobile phone, street address, city, state, country, birthday, favorite color, and favorite food might be some of the pieces of information we might want to save about a friend object, right? Friends. And it just has a default constructor when we build a friend object, and it has a member method in addition to the data members. Has a member method called displayFriend, and all that does, it just takes care of displaying all this information here, okay? So this is our basic friend and all the information, all the data members that go with a friend. And so that's what the displayFriend method does. It just accumulates it into a string using the overloaded addition assignment operator, and then we write it to the console. Okay, we have a new friend, and all the new friend method does, this function, just takes over and takes care of the responsibility of adding new friends. So when we make a new friend, we want to add a new friend, it just calls read host all the way down and takes input from the user as string data and stores it in these different variables. Now to do that, we need to use the this operator. We'll go over the this operator later when we go over classes, but just understand that at this point, this is what is necessary to be able to to access data members from a class of object, okay? All right, so member method displayFriend and member method newFriend. And these methods, these functions are declared in line inside the class. That's why we can scope into or get at these data members. But if they were not declared inside the class, if this is a normal function and not a member method inside a class, the way we would do this would have to be totally different. So be aware of that. So we have a displayFriend, we have a new friend, and here we have an edit friend, okay? So choose an attribute to change. We just want to ask the user what do they want to change, 1 through 11, and then based on what they select numerically, could be mobile phone, last name, country, favorite food, whatever. And then we ask them what value do they wish to edit. And then we're going to switch based on their choice, and we'll simply get input and allow them to modify, to change the value of that selected or chosen attribute in our switch statement, okay? And when we get done, we're going to call the member method displayFriend to display our changes. That way we can show the user that we've updated the record, and it'll show the new values for that record, okay? I just have a short helper function here called IsANumber, and we can pass in a single argument, a parameter, test, and we haven't gone over regular expressions yet, but this is a regular expression used with the match method, and this is simply if it was not a number. So again, if you want to create a little file somewhere and just keep that as a gray area until we get to it, later we'll have videos dealing with regular expressions, but this is a way of telling whether or not what something typed in was a legitimate numerical value. And we need that because some of these items here need to be numbers. In other words, we can't let them type in banana for a mobile phone, right? So we need a way to detect that. And there are built-in methods in PowerShell, but I thought in this example we would create our own with a regular expression. Okay, there's a main menu, and it's no different than the other main menus we've been creating, so I won't go over it, but it's just presenting the menu choices, and then we can exit out of the loop if, in this case, if the user chooses Q. Otherwise, it's just going to call these methods: browse friends, display friends, load friends, save friends, find a friend, add a friend, edit friend, remove friend, and then they can quit. Okay? So, browse friends. In this case, it's just going to display an index of friends. And in a simple format where we're trying to put everything on one line, we're going to display a friend object and all the columns thereof. And we haven't gone over this, but this is a way of formatting PadRight and PadLeft. So I'm padding these cells with, in this case, 10 empty spaces and 5 empty spaces to the right and the left respectively. And the reason I'm doing that is I want my output to line up in columns. If I didn't do this because 10 through 20, 30, 40, however many are 2 character numbers, whereas 1 through 9 is a 1 character number, then things wouldn't line up right. And also their first and last name lengths will be different, right? So PadRight and PadLeft give you a way of formatting things in neat columns. And you'll see when we run it and we actually call browse friends, you'll see what I'm talking about there. Okay? So that's just going to give us a condensed version of a friend. And it's only going to show their first and last name and the number. Okay? It's not going to show all the details of our friends. This is a condensed, generalized view of our array of friend objects. Now this method here, this function display friends, this is going to give us a bit more detail because it's going to go through and it's going to add lines and it's going to display all the data members, right? If I call this on group of friends and this subscript value means it's an element, each element in the array, it's going to go call the display friend method inside the friend class. And what does that do? That displays all of our friends' attributes, okay? Alright, so I'm going to run this and show you how it looks, how it works. And we still need to go over other methods, but while it's fresh in memory, I think this would be a good time. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. And I need to load my friends. Like if I were to call browse friend right now, it wouldn't show anything at all. See, I'll show you. There's nothing there. I have no friends. Isn't that sad? I have no friends at all. So enter to continue. So what I need to do is I need to load some friends, okay? So when I do that, we'll go over that function in a little bit. Right now, just kind of put it out of the way and accept it. And I'm going to display my friends. Or actually, let's do browse first. We'll go over the browse method. Okay, so here's all my friends, right? And they're lined up in columns. And that's just a summary of my first and last name. That's all this function does here, this method. And that's what PadRight and PadLeft, that gives me a way to, if it weren't for those two functions, PadRight and PadLeft, then everything would be all uneven, right? Because 10 through 14 is 2 characters, and 1 through 9 is only 1, and the first and last names are all different lengths as well. So these can come in handy when you want to format text. Press enter to continue. Now I'm going to display friends, and this will give me all the data on my friends. See? So if I scroll, from Starbuck, Harbinger of Death at Galactica.com, Commander Adama, Megaboss at Galactica.com, Twilight Sparkle TS at Equestria.com. Okay, so that's just this method here, right? If I add a friend, in this case, what's it going to do? It creates a new friend object. First, I have to build a new friend, right? Using new object. Then once I build the friend, then I can call the new friend method. And all that does, remember what that does? It just takes input from the user and allows us to assign values to the data members inside our friend class. Okay. So if I were to call add friend, and let's add a friend. Alright, so we'll add a new friend. And what's our new friend's name gonna be? Naruto. Alright, our new friend's name will be Naruto. I don't know if I spelled that right, but whatever. Alright, mobile phone. There. I don't know what. Street address. Let's see, how about 16 Hidden Leaf Village and city, Hokageville. State, Hidden Leaf. Country, 'll say country shouldn't be ninjas. Who knows? And 2002. Who knows? Orange, favorite food, ramen. Okay. All right. So we've added our friend. Okay. And now if I were to browse my friend index, alright, so see now there's Naruto Shippuden. We've added my friend, and if I wanted to get the details, I could call display friends, and here's all the details. Now, Naruto exists in memory, but he does not yet exist in file format. He's not been saved to a file, so we don't want to close this or close down ICE till we save the results. Alright, so that was add a friend. Now let's look at find a friend. Alright, the code for that. In this case, we're going to get input from the user, and we'll ask for the first name and the last name. Comes in as a string data type from read host, right? And we're simply going to iterate through all our friend records, right? Every friend class object we have stored in our global array, we're going to iterate through it as we search. And if the name is like the first name and the name is like the last name, we want an exact match in this case. And if we wanted it to be a more generic type search, we could change that and to an or. and only one would have to be true. It could be either the first name or the last name. Okay, does that make sense? But in this case, if they both match, then we'll add a line, and then we're going to display that friend. And found a friend equals true, that boolean, we're going to set the value to be true. In this case, and then if found a friend is equal to false, we didn't find anything, no friends found matching first and last name, press any key to continue. Okay? So again, to display, or let's browse our friend's first and last name. Alright, so let's find a friend, and we'll do Apple Jack. Okay? And it gives us all of her, her attributes, her attribute values. First name Apple, last name Jack, aj@thefarm.com is her email, 9 Apple Grove Lane, Pony Park, and so forth and so forth. Okay? Let's look at edit friend. If we choose edit friend, we're going to give the user two options. They can select by record number, or they can select by name. Okay? Just a basic menu here under edit friend. And so if they choose to edit friend by record number, we're going to go through and give them, display all of the records. It'll just be the first name and the last name. And again, we're using PadRight and PadLeft to format our columns so that they line up, right? So they're not uneven. And we need to check and make sure, we asked the player to input a number. So they're going to choose by record number. In this case, there's 1 through 15. We need to make sure it's a valid number. So we're going to call IsANumber and make sure they didn't type in banana or something they weren't supposed to. It was a legitimate number. We need to convert that to an integer. So we're just going to call the parse method and convert it to the data type integer, because remember, what is choice? We got choice from readhost, and readhost always returns a string. So we have to convert that string to an integer in this case. Okay? And when we do that, if menu choice is greater than or equal to 1 and menu choice is less than or equal to group of friends.count, because we don't know, this is dynamic, right? It's determined at runtime. So in this case, because we added one, it was 14, now it's 15. So if it's greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 15, that's our valid range, right? It has to be greater than or equal to 1, but less than or equal to the number of actual records in our global array. Then and only then, we need to subtract 1 to prevent the fence post error, right? And then we're going to call display friend and edit friend. And display friend will simply display their current stats, right? Let me go back up to my friend class. So display friend would just display their current stats, and then edit friend would allow us to modify or change any of those attributes, right? So let's go back to that. And this is edit friend by record number. And so that's what we would have to do. So let's give that a shot. And we'll edit a friend. We'll try select by record number first. So let's choose Velma Dinkley. Okay, so we'll choose 11. And if I do that, I've selected Velma Dinkley. And I can change or update her attributes. So let's say her country, I want to modify her country attribute. Instead of Shaggyville, we'll say Scoobyville, right? Okay. So now her country was Shaggyville, and her country's been updated, now it's Scoobyville. And I press enter to go back. Now that was edit a friend by a record number. Now what if, on the other hand, I chose the option to edit a friend by name? Well, similar to the search and display method, I'm using readhost. I get the first and last name. And then here I'm going to go through in our for loop. for every record, if the first name and the last name, if they match, then I'm going to display the friend and edit the friend. Okay. So let's try that second option when we edit a friend. And I'll select by name. And let's choose Naruto. I have no idea. I have no idea how I spelled that. Okay, good. Alright, so choose a value that I wish to edit. And I'm going to choose street address 5. Choose option 5, street address. And I'm going to make this hidden leaf way. Okay? Get the E off of my leaf there. Alright, so now notice, it was 16 Hidden Leaf Village, now it's 777 Hidden Leaf Way. So we've successfully edited just 2 different ways. We could select a record. We could select a friend class object to edit it. Okay? And if I wanted to remove a friend, to do that, okay, well, choose a friend to remove. I need to present all of my data in terms of rows. And then, in this case, read host, select a number from the list, so select who I want to remove. And then I need to check and make sure it's a number. If it's a legitimate number, right? They can't type in banana, I can't let them do that. And then menu choice, if it's greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to group of friends count, that would be a valid range, right? Between 1 and the last, highest number of elements in the array. Okay? And then I'll say removing friend. And what I'm going to do, because there's no real way to do this with a simple array, but what I can do is I can create what's called an array list, okay? So, and that's what I've done here, right? I have an array list, a friend array list, and I've added all these friends one by one inside my for loop. And so I've just copied them, iterated through all the ones in my loop, and I've added them to an array list. And when I do that, there's a function called RemoveAt, and I can remove the friend at that location. Whatever numeric location that I pass in, I can remove that friend using RemoveAt with an array list object. Okay? And then what I'm doing is I reinitialize global group of friends so it has no values. And then member-wise, I just copy every single element from my friends array list to my global group of friends. Right? So that's how I actually delete a friend object. Okay? And so let's say I wanted to do that. If I browse my friends by index, let's say I want to get rid of get rid of Ginger Grant, right? I'll choose 14. So remove a friend, and I'm going to select a number from the list above. I'm going to choose 14, Ginger Grant from Gilligan's Island. Ginger Grant, removing friend number 14, enter to continue. And now if I browse my friends, instead of 15 objects, notice now there's only 14. So that's a way I could code that so that I could actually remove a friend object. Something happened, we broke up, we are not friends anymore, whatever happened, and that just gives us a way to edit or remove that object. And then the last 2 functions we need to go over are load friends and save friends, okay? So I need to save this, and this is just basic file access. We've already gone over this, right? So in this case, I'm getting the relative path from where I'm running the script. Here's the name of my CSV file. I'm concatenating those 2 values together into a string. And then inside of a for loop here, I'm just going to iterate through, and with each repetition up to the number of elements in the array, I'm going to instantiate and build a new class of object with the new object method, and it's going to be a PS object. And then I'm simply going to add these members in, okay? So using the note property attribute, I'm going to take everything that, that would be a column name, and that's what would go under name. These would be column names, and then these would be the actual values. And that's just going to be the actual friend object. I'm going to target it by the index or the subscript value of x in that array. And once I target it by the index or subscript value, I'm going to fetch it or retrieve all of the attributes, the data members encapsulated within that class, okay? And all of that is, via the pipe symbol, that's getting added to our output object. And when we're all done, when we've added all these global, let me pull this out, we've added all these global data members here to the output object, okay? Then we can write it all to a file. And we're going to use the append and node type information parameters, or arguments in this case, and our output file. And then that whole object, along with the column names and all the column data, would then be written to the file. Okay? So let's do that right now before we forget. Let's save all of our current friends. Okay? So we're going to save it. And it just iterates through all of the class, use the programmer defined class objects in the array, and tells us finish saving friends. We'll hit enter to continue. And let's quit. Okay. And we'll close ICE and we'll reopen it again. And let's load address book. And if I ran address book, okay, I haven't loaded anything yet. I saved it all to a file, but I haven't loaded anything yet, right? So if I were to try to browse my friends, look, I have no friends again. I'm sad once again because I have no friends. So now we just need to load the data that we saved to a file. And how do we do that? Let's look at the load method. So load method, the same thing, right? I want to get the relative path, and not the absolute path, but the relative path to the file directory where I'm running the script from. And in this case, I'm going to read, in from the CSV file. And I'm just concatenating these two strings together here. I'm going to use the import CSV method and store the result. Basically I just take a pointer and I hand it to my friends. And that holds the whole record set that we read in using import CSV from our data directory and our friend file. I'm going to use the count method to return the number of elements in the array in this case. And now I need to reinitialize the array, because if I'm loading, I may have had some other stuff in that global array previously, but I need to reinitialize it. I need to nullify and empty that array because I need to replace whatever data is in memory with the data that I read from the file. So that's what I'm doing right here. I reinitialize the array. And here we have another basic for loop, right? So the initialization phase, x is initialized to 0 in the test condition portion, while x is less than the number of elements in my friends. So we use the count method, and we're going to post fix increment x as the action portion as we iterate through each repetition of our for loop. And we're just going to basically take everything that we've read in, okay, and we're going to build a new friend object, right? Here we're building a brand new friend object, new object friend, and we're going to take that data, and in this case, my friends, remember my friends is what we imported. It's the whole record set we imported using import-csv. So we're going to use the subscript value of the array, and we're going to cycle through each and every record that we read from that file, and each and every attribute, first name, last name, email, mobile phone, street, city, state, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and remember the assignment operator says take what's on the right and store it in what's on the left. So a friend, our new friend object, we're going to make the attribute values match the attributes we read in from the file. And finally, when we get done, we're going to use the overloaded addition assignment operator to add that, basically to add that into the array. And in PowerShell, this is a bit of smoke and mirrors. Languages that give you tighter control over memory management, like C++ and Java, they won't let you do this. You'd have to use like a list object or a different type of object that can be more dynamically sized. What's going on in PowerShell? It'll let you do this with a simple array, but behind the scenes, it's actually destroying the current array, and then it's recreating or rebuilding a new array with an additional element added, okay? So it's very convenient, but remember, it can be expensive in terms of performance if you do that frequently. So although it's a powerful and useful tool, maybe one that you might decide to use sparingly, okay? So anyway, that's what's happening there, right? That array is being dynamically resized, destroyed and recreated, adding each new friend element to it, each object. And finally, when we're done, well, this is a global, right? That array, it's a global. It's outside the local scope of this function. So when this function comes to an end, we don't care, because those objects will continue to persist in memory until we actually, close the main function, the calling function that invoked all the other functions in the first place, and even ICE itself. So we're good in that fashion, okay? So again, we saved everything to a file, but we haven't loaded anything yet. So if I tried to browse, look, it's null. I have no friends, and how sad is that? So now I'm going to load some friends. If you don't have any friends, build some and load them. Hallelujah. Alright, so now I've loaded my friends from the file. I've repopulated that array, and now I have some data that I can display. Oh my gosh, I'm a poet and I don't even know it. I could bust into a rap almost. Okay, in this case, we just appended these values to that file. Alright? So that kind of goes through all of the basic methods and functions. This is a very simple project that will give you lots of practice with simple one-dimensional arrays.